A parent's worst nightmare is something happening to their children. Unfortunately, this nightmare came true for Maureen, whose oldest daughter, 14-year-old Rosemary, had disappeared in 2015. Although Rosemary was certainly a handful, she was still Maureen's pride and joy. Unfortunately, the relationship between mother and daughter was strained when Rosemary became a teenager and no longer wanted to be under her mother's thumb. As a child, Rosemary had been nothing short of an angel, but as she grew into teenhood, she became difficult to deal with.
Hello, wonderful people. I'm Scott Leffler for WonderBot. Today's video is about
Daughter disappears mysteriously until mother comes across odd Facebook posts.
Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
The day that Rosemary went missing was just like any other day. The young teenager had gone out for the day with her friends, but she hadn't returned by that night. Naturally, Rosemary assumed that she was partaking in normal defiant behaviors by staying at someone's house and ignoring her calls. The next day came, but still no Rosemary. The police sternly believed that Rosemary, being a typical rebellious teen, had run away. They assumed that she was just confused and stressed about her life and saw running away as a viable option. However, Maureen was not convinced. Yes, she admitted her daughter wasn't perfect, but she wasn't stupid enough to think that running away was the right answer to her problems. After a few weeks, it was obvious that wherever she was, she had no intention of being found. Maureen was completely crushed. She kept imagining her daughter somewhere by herself, trying to get home, alone and scared. Although the search remained active, the police offered very little help. Since they were set on the fact that she'd run away, they didn't think there was anything they could do to help the situation. Maureen began posting missing person posters and was reaching out to anyone who would listen over the internet. She even dived into her daughter's social media to see if she could find some sort of clue that would lead her to her daughter's location. Despite the feverish search, Maureen still had no idea where she was. Months passed and police still offered no assistance. Shockingly enough, Maureen became hopeful as people started to come to Maureen with news about her daughter. Some friends and family members reached out to Maureen to inform her that they had seen her on the streets in the months after her disappearance. They also said that every time they tried to approach her, she would run away as fast as she could. Maureen was confused. She knew this couldn't be right. Almost 6 months exactly after Rosemary's disappearance, Maureen logged onto her Facebook only to find photos that Rosemary had posted of herself on the internet. These were photos Maureen had never seen before, meaning that these were new pictures that had been posted by the user. From an outsider's perspective, these pictures of Rosemary seemed completely normal. They seemed like everyday photos and selfies that an average teen would post. However, something about these photos didn't seem right to Maureen. Mother's intuition told her that there was something wrong with these photos. She felt sick to her stomach every time she looked at her daughter's offbeat smile. Something was wrong. Rosemary looked completely different than the daughter she'd known before the disappearance. Her red hair that she'd been so proud of was bleached and damaged. Her smile looked plastered on her face as though she was being forced. After seeing these photos, Maureen panicked. She was convinced her daughter was taken by human traffickers. Every day in the United States, children are victims of kidnapping and human trafficking. Many times, these children are taken away from their homes and forced to work in factories, sweatshops, farms, brothels, and some are even trained as child soldiers. Maureen decided to reach out using her own social media platforms to tell the world her concerns. She wrote, "She is missing and endangered and is presumed to have fallen into the hands of child trafficking criminals. Since she disappeared, I found images of her online. She knew her daughter was crying out for help, and she would get people to listen to her somehow." The photos that surfaced of Rosemary had been the first clue in a year and a half that arose of Rosemary. So the search continued, but as the weeks went on with no news or new photos, Maureen believed that perhaps her daughter had been killed for posting on the internet. Maureen began posting more on the internet, organizing statewide searches in Oregon, and reaching out to the media with her story. On January 16, 2016, Maureen's father, David F. Gullett, had reached out saying he'd found her. He shared the good news through social media platforms, writing, I want to reach out and thank everyone for your prayer and support. Rosemary's been found thanks to an anonymous tip. Several situations are still in play to provide an amiable return home. When the police questioned Rosemary, they'd found that Maureen's concern about trafficking was exaggerated. Indeed, the girl had run away from home and hadn't had the courage to return home. But Rosemary's mysterious story didn't end there.